Okay, this again is associated with Unit 3, Activity 2. We're just going to do a quick review of what we call the Cartesian plane. The Cartesian plane is what we use when we're plotting two-dimensional figures or points or lines. So the Cartesian plane represents the relationship between x on the horizontal axis and y on the vertical axis. And although in this picture that you're looking at, the Cartesian plane is just a square, it's actually a two-dimensional plane that extends forever. So it extends to positive infinity to the right, negative infinity to the left, positive infinity up, and negative infinity again down on the y-axis. So you can imagine this plane could cover a biggest surface as you can imagine. It's infinitely large, although of course most of ours will just deal with what we can fit on a piece of paper or on a graph. So a few important parts of a Cartesian plane. I've got a vertical axis y, a horizontal axis x, and the origin is at point 0, 0. So that point in the middle of the plane, we're going to be calling the origin. The plane is divided into 4 quadrants. So I've got quadrant 1, which is where x and y are positive. That's in the top right. Then I go counterclockwise to my second quadrant 2, my third quadrant 3, and my fourth quadrant 4. Many of the graphs that we deal with in this unit, we're only going to look at the first quadrant when the data is only positive for x and positive for y. So if I'm looking at the relationship between hours studied and test scores, we would only need to do a graph for the first quadrant because hours studied has to be 0 or bigger, and the score on your test has to be 0 or bigger. So when I talk about the quadrants, you can kind of imagine this diagram moving counterclockwise, and we often use Roman numerals to represent the quadrants in math class. How can we describe the location of a point? So any point we can describe using brackets, and we can list first the x-coordinate, so how far have I moved horizontally from the origin, and then I use the y-coordinate, how far have I moved vertically. So this initial point, this red dot that I've put here, is 5 to the right, so my x is positive 5, and 6 up, so my y value is positive 6. So I could call this point 5, 6, and we're always going to include points in brackets. So that's how we express a coordinate on the Cartesian plane. We can also call this coordinate an ordered pair. They're ordered because they always need to be in that order x, then y. It's alphabetical order. And it's a pair because I always need 2 numbers to perfectly describe the location of a coordinate. The order never changes. It's always x and then y. You can always think about horizontal first and then vertical. And then if you've watched our previous video on scatter plots, that's also always the independent variable first. And then what does it cause? The dependent variable. So hours studied and then the test score. If it helps, you can think about entering a hotel in the door up the elevator. I find alphabetical order is a more helpful way to remember x and then y. So you can plot some different points. So negative 4, 6, I've got to go 4 to the left and up 6. Decimals are no problem. We're going to use a lot of computers when we deal with decimals and fractions, but I can go 2 to the right and then I can go down 3.5. If both numbers are negative, I'm going to be in quadrant 3. First I've gone to the left and then down. And I can deal with fractions as well. I'm at 6 3/4 to the right and then 3 2/3 up. So all of those points lie in different quadrants. And again, we want to be extra careful when we're plotting points where one of the coordinates is 0. 0 just means I'm not moving at all vertically or horizontally. So if the y-axis, if the y-coordinate is 0, there's no vertical height, so point E is just 5 to the right, and then I'm still on the x-axis. If the x-coordinate is 0, then I'm not moving left or right. So 0, 6 means I've moved 0, and then I've gone straight up 6. So be careful of those points that have a 0 in the coordinate. This should be a review from grade 8. If you have any questions, please send me an email, and that's all for now.